And if you believe Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, and I do mean dictator, if you believe Russian dictator and war criminal Vladimir Putin, he's just won another election for another 6 years as Russian president. And he won it with an amazing, unbelievable, truly unbelievable 88% of the vote.
I would like to thank the citizens of Russia. We are all one team.
Now, I guess 88% is the kind of result you would get when you make criticising your war in Ukraine a criminal offence, when you have just killed your main opposition rival, Alexei Navalny, when you have arrested or silenced many others, when you've arrested protesters against you, when you censor newspapers and television stations, and you engage in massive vote rigging. But there were signs this time of an anti-Putin protest that this made-up vote tally didn't tell. I mean, you had women protested by pouring lots of ink into ballot boxes to spoil other ballots, or even setting ballot boxes alight. Many voters held a silent noon against Putin protest that Navalny had okayed just before his death. By turning up at noon on the last day of voting, and then how could police arrest voters? Turning up and then not voting. In polling stations in Russia and at Russian embassies abroad, huge queues of people doing this. Now, this is Germany, where the Russians there chanted anti-Putin slogans and cheered Alexei Navalny's widow. Joining me is the country's top foreign affairs writer, Greg Sheridan of the Australian newspaper. Greg, Putin elected for 6 years by 88% of the vote of Russians. Do you believe it, and what does it mean for the world?
No, well, of course I don't believe it. I think you had a brilliant idea off air, which he might have chosen 88% because it's an auspicious number in Chinese.
Well, it's got Chinese, it depends very much on Chinese support, so maybe he wants to
absolutely. No, the vote is an obscenity, and he's humbly thanking the voters. It reminds me, I can't remember whether it was Chairman Mao or one of the North Korean dictators who, according to the state propaganda, played his first round of golf in his life and hit every ball as a hole-in-one, and then swam up the Yangtze River. I think it was Chairman Mao.
That's Mao. He swung in world record time.
In world record time. And I mean, I don't think these dictators even expect people to believe it. They just are showing you their power. It's like
making you say you believe it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like Big Brother in 1984. Yeah. You know, they just the ability to say 2 + 2 is 4 is what defeats the dictator. And
exactly, and if a dictator can make everyone say 2 + 2 = 5, or in this case 88, brilliant. That just shows who's the boss. Putin is killing and is rigging his way to election wins like this. He'll be the longest-serving, he serves out this term, longest-serving Russian leader in 200 years, beating Joe Stalin. Meanwhile, this is the leader of the West, the free world, President Joe Biden. Have a look.
That Netanyahu should go.
I don't admire Putin's methods one little bit, obviously, but is that man and the West generally strong enough to outlast and outfight Vladimir Putin?
Well, Andrew, it's a fair question. I got a column in tomorrow's paper outlining how all the AUKUS partners, the US, Britain and Australia, are cutting their defence capabilities, cutting their defence budgets. And, you know, Grant Shapps, the British Defence Secretary, says we're living in a pre-war time. Joe Biden says how perilous the competition with China is. Our own government says it's most dangerous strategic circumstances in 80 years. But all of our societies are so addicted to welfare payments and NDIS and insanely expensive green energy transitions and all the rest of it, they're not going to spend on defence, and they don't project any vigour. I mean, I think our own government has gone quiet on China, won't say boo on China.
Won't say it.
Won't answer Paul Keating. It's all of our governments in different ways.
Have they said nothing on the Paul Keating thing?
Well, not today, I think. And normally, last time he abused Penny Wong and Albanese, they got Jim Chalmers to say, all that he said was, I think Paul is wrong. He still enjoys my friendship, but I think he's wrong on Penny Wong and Mike Burgess. But they won't make the argument. I mean, Bob Hawke defeated the anti-Americans and anti-nuclear people of his day by taking them on and defeating them in argument. Him and
enjoyed
Kim
it.
Beazley and Bill Hayden. That's right. Whereas Albo, he's kind of got into a fetal crouch and he won't say boo to a goose and he just says nothing. And they think this is statesmanlike, but what they're doing is they're not defending their basic strategic
It shows they have no courage. Let's talk about that goose, Paul Keating. I talked earlier how he's going to have a meeting, a private meeting, with the Chinese Foreign Minister, Wang Yi. Wang Yi's got an even higher title now, councillor or something, in Sydney, when Wang Yi knows that Paul Keating has been attacking the Albanese government for being too hard on China, what a joke that is, saying we're all wrong and China's not a threat. I mean, he's running an alternative foreign policy as a former Labor Prime Minister. This is totally inappropriate.
Yeah, I think it's disgraceful by Keating, truly disgraceful for a Prime Minister to oppose his own government on a matter of national security and connive with the antagonist government. But, Andrew, I want to make this point to you. Wang Yi knows exactly what he's doing, and he is kicking sand into the face of the Albanese government. He's come here to humiliate.
No, you're wrong. I thought it was all friends now.
He's come
friends.
Just as when they called Albanese a handsome boy, they knew that this was a humiliating and degrading term. So now they are saying, yes, we're going to welcome you Australians back now that you admit the error of your ways, and we are going to embrace your most vicious and aggressive and contemptuous critic who talks of you all the time in tones of contempt and contumely, and we're going to say what a wise and wonderful man he is, and we know this is going to overshadow our meeting with you, and we're doing this to show you who's boss. And my guess is the Albanese government will just say thank you for coming, God bless you, please lift our wine tariffs, and that'll be it.
What has this government actually got out of crawling to China? Because it is a crawl. Kimberly Kitching was right. When the last conversation I had with her before her untimely death, the former Labor senator, what a loss, what a terrible loss, was exactly that. I said, can we trust this Labor government to be, incoming Labor government, to be tough on China? She said no.
For the first 6 months, they were pretty good, but then they completely lost their nerve. I think the Voice did them a lot more harm than we think, losing that referendum. And they're very conflict averse. Richard Marles, who, you know, talks like Dick Cheney in private, he obviously has no traction or influence in the government whatsoever. It's an Albanese, Wong, Katie Gallagher, Jim Chalmers government. It's essentially a Labor left government. And even when they recognise that someone like Keating is talking complete rubbish, they won't have a fight about it.
Well, that's because they're scared in part of what Keating might do. And of course, Albanese is an admirer of Paul Keating. I mean, oh my God, it's all tribal. Greg Sheridan, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.